Hello there, Kansas City. Stephen St. John here with the latest episode of Hot Mic with SSJ. And remember, you can watch us on YouTube or download the podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, whether it's Spotify or Apple. Fuck, those are the only two I know. So if you listen to it someplace else, God bless you. But we're going to start off. We have two special guests in studio. We have my dad, Steve St. John Sr., back for a triumphant return, and a good friend of his, good friend of mine, Mike Albanese, who's with us. But first, we have to start off with an instant reaction from my dad, because you watch all. Do you? I don't know. Maybe you say do you listen to all these podcasts?
Yeah.
With your fucking son, you should. Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so you're a fan.
Yes.
And so you know our good friend Jake Gutierrez. Jake Gutierrez, and he's back from Colorado, and he's been writing this book, and he finally has a cover for the book. And he says it's going to come out at the end of the year. I don't know that, but this is where we're headed. But he was in studio a couple of days ago for the latest episode. I don't know if you've seen it yet. It's just been out for a day or two. And he revealed to us something I'd like to get your instant reaction to. He has said that finally he's taken that leap, and he's been drinking his own piss. He's been drinking his own urine, called looping. And so every morning he gets up, and he pisses into a mason jar, and then he sits it out in the bathroom so it can reach room temperature. And then he said usually takes about 2 pulls and guzzles it down. And he says he could see the benefits. He had a bad back. His back is better. He says he's not having pain in his knees at all. I'm not shitting you. And so he's very serious about this. He had thought about this for 6 months before he finally did it. So every day he drinks a mason's jar of his own piss. I'd like you, because you've seen it all and done it all in the years you've been on this earth. What do you think about that? He says it's great benefits to what he does. What do you think? Have you ever heard of this? What do you think of this?
Well, first, for me, I would say piss on that.
Right.
And I mean piss on that.
Right.
But I've been in 2 federal institutions that were nut wards too. And I wasn't there as a nut, trust me.
Okay.
But there was people that had problems, and they drank piss. They drank anything.
Right.
So, but Jake is doing it because he wants to do it.
Right.
I don't know what that deal is.
See, I've known some fighters, like one of my favorite fighters, Juan Manuel Marquez, did this, and he would do this in fight camp because he says that you piss out a bunch of the nutrients and vitamins that you need, so it replenishes. So there are athletes and people that it's called looping, and so Jake is doing this. Is this something you'd ever consider?
Looping for the loopy.
Yeah, right. If you're how old? You're 70.
I'm 70
years old now. If your doctor said, well, maybe you got to think about drinking some of your own piss and this will get you feeling good.
Tell him I would after you drink yours.
It's okay. All right. Okay. And so that's the update on Jake. Yeah. So you thumbs up or thumbs down on that?
A thumbs down on that.
Okay. And so I'll have you do this. Introduce our special guest that you brought to the studio.
This is my friend Mike Albanese. And he's been incarcerated for 25 straight years, and that is straight years.
Right.
And I asked him, that's a long time. He said, not if you say it fast. And there's nobody that I know that's come out with the attitude that he's got as far as his next swing on life. He's looking so much forward to it, and it's just, it's a long time to take out of a person's life. 25 years. A little funny story. He just got his license the other day, and the gal looked at him because she's wondering, well, where's this guy been for 25 years? He didn't have to tell her, but he just told her. He said, ma'am, I haven't driven for a while.
Right.
A while. 25 years. That's a long time.
It's like you were in for what, 8.5?
Yeah, almost, yeah.
So when you 25 years.
Oh,
8.5 was a long fucking time.
No, it's unbelievable what he went to. 25 years is 25 years, and that's just, it's crazy.
And you bounced around a bit. So where were you? Where did you serve your time at, Mike?
So I did the bulk of my sentence at Crossroads Correctional Center there in Cameron, Missouri.
Okay.
Damn near opened the place and definitely closed it after the last major riot we had.
Oh, boy.
One of many. And I just want to point out to both of you, it's 25 and a half years.
Okay,
So I feel like you're both cheating me out of 6 months.
25 and a half.
I earned every bit of 25 and a half. So, but yeah, the majority of my sentence was at Crossroads Correctional Center in Cameron.
So when were you released? When did you get out?
I just came home August 3rd.
So you've been out a month, just over a month and a half.
About a month and a half, 2 months.
And so was this? Did you know the date for a long time of when you were going to get out? Was it up in the air? Like how long did you know? Did you have that circle? Like this is when I'm finally going to get out.
Yeah. So that was pretty much aside from being placed in a maximum security prison in the state of Missouri. That was almost the worst part of my whole situation. Is the fact that I had a life sentence compliments of Platte County. And when you have life in the state of Missouri, yes, you have an expectation for release, but it's discretionary. It's up to the parole board when they feel like letting you go.
So there was no hard date that you
There
had?
was,
Okay.
my face sheet, my paperwork said 99999, which means hopefully you go up for parole and get a release date. You could go up for parole and get a setback. So it's an interesting thing to carry around when you're serving time because there is no end date.
Right.
So,
but when did you find out that was? How much time did you know before you were going to get out that was the date?
So, in the state of Missouri, the mandatory minimum on life is 25 and a half years. So, in the back of my mind, I always knew the least amount of time I would do if none of my appeals, went through or were successful, which so few of them actually are. I always knew 25 and a half years was the mandatory minimum. But again, serving time in a maximum security prison where it's just complete chaos, controlled chaos, anything can happen.
Right.
You could get in a fight, you could stab somebody, you could get stabbed.
You mentioned
you could die of cancer.
multiple riots.
We had so many riots, I can't even count. I mean, Crossroads was a very poorly run prison. Guards are underpaid in the state of Missouri. So a lot can happen in 25 and a half years.
Yeah, so give me an example of one of the riots. And what do you do? What caused it? How does because that's fuck, right? A prison riot. So
let me tell you, riots are simple. They're just based on tension.
Right.
And, for most people that have never served time or don't have family and friends that have been incarcerated, it's easy for them to say, oh, to hell with them. Lock them up, throw away the key. We don't want them to have televisions. We don't want them to have cable. We don't want them to have anything. But the problem with that is when you put grown men, or women for that matter, but when you put grown men in that kind of situation, keeping us in our cells and little rec time, not very many jobs, no classrooms. There's an old saying, an idle mind is a devil's workshop, and that couldn't be more true. So just tension,
right.
Tension build up, and it needs a release, and that's usually where riots came from. Mistreatment,
What was the wildest one or the scariest one or one that got out of hand that you were thinking, fuck?
No question, the last one that got Crossroads closed down, where literally prisoners, hundreds of prisoners overtook a portion of the prison and accessed a couple of forklifts and just started destroying. Yeah. So
where were you in this thing?
Luckily, I was in my cell, able to watch it through the window.
And that's the one time you're happy in your cell. You don't want to be in the middle of that shit, right? That's
well. There's some guys that probably wanted to be in the middle of that.
Right.
I'm sure not everybody's on the same page with.
I'll get them.
Yeah, with regards to how you're going to do your time. And plenty of men in the state of Missouri are serving life without the possibility of parole or hundreds of years. So what do they care? They're going to tear that place up. They're going to, they got nothing to look forward to. Yeah. So
before we get into talking about, why you were in, the story behind it and everything else, I just want to talk to you about, getting out after 25 and a half years.
Sure.
And you were originally from New York, right?
Correct.
And so how old were you when you came to Kansas City? 6 years old?
No, my mother and I moved from New York to Kansas City in the early 80s, maybe 81, 82. So, I was about 9 or 10. I was born in 72. Young enough to have experienced New York, but pretty much grew up in Kansas
You
City.
grew up in Kansas City. What high school did you go to?
I went to Wentworth Military Academy.
Okay.
And then for a short period of time, I went to J.C. Harmon High School over in Kansas City, Kansas. And
And we have some mutual friends. I
We
know
do.
You like big. I apologize about this, but Big Tom. I mean, that's don't hold that against us. He's a friend of the show and everything else. And boy, how about,
don't say anything bad about Big Tom, because I plan on going out there to eat.
Oh, that's
so
all I know. How about-
don't jinx me. I'm looking forward to going out there and tasting his food, because I hear it's great.
It is great. Talk about shit that's changed. After 25 years, you took a look at him. Maybe you want to go fucking back inside after. He's that's my guy though. No, and you great food. So you get out. For people that will never understand this and never experience this, take me to that day, 25 and a half years, and you're fucking going home.
I'm going to take you to the days that led up to it, because,
Fine.
in the state of Missouri, you go up for parole and you don't get an immediate release. I got a 2-year out date. So I had 2 years from the time that I went up for parole and knew I was going home to serve additional time. Well, as that 2 years starts to get closer and closer, you go to bed 1 minute, you're like, shit, I got 2 years left. Next minute, you got 6 months, 4 months, 3 months, 2 months, then you're within days. And oddly, I was pretty calm throughout the whole 2 years. But, the night before, it's like, fuck, this is real. I'm going home in the morning.
Right.
And you want to say my last time, like this is the last time I have to sleep on this miserable, steel cot. This is the last time I have to piss in a community bathroom with, a bunch of shitheads. So it's exciting. It's a lot, somewhat overwhelming. I happened to leave from St. Joe because I leveled down from maximum security to minimum, and they open a garage door there in St. Joe, and you walk down a little, walkway that has a fence, and people are parked on the other side. People were honking their horns and clapping, and
So how many people did you have waiting for you there?
It was quite the showing. There must have been 30, 35 people in that parking lot, at least 9 or 10 cars. Yeah, it was. I mean, it brought me to tears. I'm not gonna lie.
What's going through your head at that moment?
You're like, it's over. Finally, I did my time. I'm going home, and you just start looking forward to everything. The little things. Like we left St. Joe and went to Starbucks, which for you guys, probably drink Starbucks a million times.
You've never been to Starbucks?
I've never been to Starbucks, and so we walk into Starbucks, and somebody gets me a coffee, and just, I guess I always try to find silver linings, and the silver lining is that when you do 25 and a half years in prison, if and when you do make it out of that and your head is screwed on straight and you're not pissed off at the world, everything you do is going to be new. Like the little things. They put an iPhone 13 in my hand. This is like the best toy I've ever had in my life. Mm-hmm. To you guys, it's a smartphone. It's a pain in the ass. It's what you use for work. But yeah, everything is new and different. But the changes in Kansas City,
But by the
amazing.
way, if you're looking for help, don't ask my dad about using that fucking phone because he still is
I had to get us here.
Life 360, right.
I had to find the way to this place.
He's
we were
been
on
gone 25 and a half
and
fucking
I got
years.
us here.
You've been out here at least 50 times, and he had to fucking find the way to get
We
out.
were driving
you know
to
what?
Nebraska.
All I was doing was checking his skills with that phone.
Is that what it was? It was
And
a
he
test.
passed the test.
Yeah, I
He
passed the
Congratulations,
test.
Mike.
I've been
Absolutely.
tested so many fucking times in this lifetime, it's not even funny.
You passed that one.
Passed
That's a good
every one of them.
And so it's a Starbucks. And so I mean, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to eat? Is there something you had thought about? Like, I mean, besides the obvious, I can't wait to do this. I can't wait to do that. Or are you just happy to be out and say, you know what? Take me where you want to take me. Like, how did you want that first day to go?
Oh no, I'm planning my welcome home.
Okay, so there we go. All right.
Yeah, I'm an alpha male through and through, and I like to make plans and I like to take charge. So I'm very fortunate not only to have a great support group, lots of family and friends, but I have a niece, Kendra Power, Kenny from the Dot, as we call her, and she had worked at Yard House after college. She played softball at Mizzou. Started
we're
working at the
talking.
Yard House, right? I used to tease her that she was the only straight softball player on the whole team. Bless her heart. I love her. So she, after college, she takes a job at the Yard House out at the Legends and works her way up, winds up becoming the GM at the Power and Light location.
Okay.
Which the Yard House is part of the Darden Group, Eddie V's.
Okay.
So she said,
There we go.
Mike, she calls me Uncle Mike. Uncle Mike, we're having your welcome home party at Eddie V's. Now, I can't afford Eddie V's. I ain't got 2 fucking nickels to rub together. I've been gone 25 and a half years, spent every dime I had and could get my hands on lawyers and appeals. And so she hooked it up. We had a private room full of people, the food. Yeah,
What was the first meal you had? What did you eat?
Well, the first meal, we actually went to a place on the west side. You'll appreciate this, being half Mexican. Los Alamos.
Okay, there you go.
A small, I wanted my first meal to be mom and pop, not a chain, father and son, wall of windows, beautiful morning. We got there maybe 10:30, 11. And the son was nice enough to push some tables together. And man, we just ate. We ate some homemade. I love Mexican breakfast. I'm a Sicilian kid from New York, but I'm gonna tell you what.
You get that chorizo in there, right?
You're not gonna find a better breakfast than a Mexican breakfast. Chorizo, eggs, fried potatoes, and we just filled the table up with food and ate and talked, and it was exciting, man. It was. We left there, and I kind of looked around the west side and saw all the changes that had been made. So,
I want to thank our great sponsors, Patrick Carter, KCFarmersAgent.com. He's the man if you want to complete your insurance picture. I don't know if you're insured, Mike, but if you're not, we'll get you hooked up with Patrick Carter. You don't want these national people where you dial a 1-800 number, they keep you on fucking hold for half an hour. They don't care about you. Patrick Carter, KCFarmersAgent.com. He cares about you. Also, KCGrillingCo.com, Kansas City Grilling Company, KC Grilling Company, rubs, seasonings, barbecue sauces, injections and marinades, grills and smokers, outdoor kitchens. They got it all for a guy that likes to barbecue like my dad. KCGrillingCo.com. You've been out there, Dad. You love it. And
I do love
CBD American Shaman, CBDAmericanShaman.com, CBD gummies, CBD tropical cream. Rub that shit all over yourself and you'll feel great. CBD American Shaman. What has blown your mind the most about Kansas City and just everything in the environment around you after 25 and a half years? Because you knew Kansas City well before you left. What's just like left you awestruck about the town now that you're out?
I mean, everything. You say I knew Kansas City well. There was not much to know.
Right.
I mean, not to smack Kansas City in the mouth, but prior to me going to prison in 1997, Kansas City was quiet. Downtown was crickets late at night.
Downtown,
there was nothing downtown. The city market empty.
Unless you went to see Big Tom at Club Life.
You went. Yeah, that sums it up.
Yeah, there you go.
It just, for a kid in his 20s, there was not a lot to do in Kansas City. You had to go out to Overland Park. You had to find something to do.
You had to go to Woody's at I-29 and 64th Street.
You're not old enough to know about
That's
Woody's.
That's where I met my wife. I'm the same age as you.
Man.
I was born in 72. We're the same age. We're the same everything.
You got good genes.
Maybe
It must be from your mother.
We went, we went with this, Mexicans. That's right. We absolutely. That's why it's very interesting to me because I was in North. I went to St. Pius. I grew up in Northeast, but then when I was 25, I moved to the Northland, and I think about that. I met my wife in '96, had my first son in 1996, and then that's 97. I'm thinking imagine 25 years old to now. How much everything's changed and what a different, just the world itself, everything. It's too much for me to even fucking.
Well, I can't tell you about the world because I haven't traveled as of yet, but I can tell you Kansas City is truly amazing at this point. I'm very happy with what I've seen so far. It's talk about growth. I mean, you see construction everywhere still, but I mean, Kansas City has come a long way. It's funny because I thought I was going to get out and come to Kansas City and take a look around and say, all right, where am I going to move to?
It's fucking great, isn't it?
No, it's fucking great. I got to take my hat off to Kansas City.
And so I remember when my dad got out, and I remember we waited for you at the airport, and I was with a friend of yours, and then I was with Vince. It was Vince. We were waiting for you. And the whole seemed like the whole plane emptied out, and we didn't know like if you were going to make that plane. And it was one of those things where he ain't out until we see him out.
Right?
You know, like we're
Is he on the plane? Did he not make his flight?
I started getting worried because Vince was standing next to me, and I remember Vince going, "Oh, come on, Steve, be on the plane, Steve." And at that point, I'm thinking, is there a fucking question here of whether or not he's And I go, I thought this was a done deal, and then all of a sudden you see him walking out. And just that moment, right? Yeah. But then, I remember I wanted to take him some places, right?
Sure.
And I can't remember where the fuck it was that I took you. And it was early on, right after you got out. But it was a lot of people. And I just didn't think about it. I was just so excited. Yeah, I want to take you here. Let's go there. And clearly, when we walked into the joint, I want to say it was a sporting event. But I don't know what it was. But I clearly realized this is too many fucking people. He's not
sensory overload.
And he's, and you're kind of keeping your. I'm not. It was.
No, it's true.
You kind of keep his back to the wall, and then I go, "What's it? There's too many fucking people here." And it was just too much. And so I found out you went to a Chiefs game last week, right?
I did.
And that's going to the extreme. 80,000 people, and that's. Hey, that's some wild shit out there. That could be a prison riot.
Yeah, it was pretty intense.
There's people fighting in the fucking stands, and so I'm just curious because if I would have taken him to the Chiefs game, I don't know. He'd have fucking.
I wouldn't have went.
He'd have left. He still doesn't like going to a lot of. That's just the way he is. But what was that like? Because like you said, over sensory overload. It's tough for some people just to go to a Chiefs game because there's so much shit going on. What was that experience like for you? Because that can't be compared to anything else.
Well, you can't compare a Chiefs game to anything, right. Period. Because that crowd is very serious and very intense. But
did you love it or like me?
Man, I loved it. It's funny because crowds don't seem to faze me.
So that was good.
I feel comfortable. It's almost like freedom suits me better than incarceration. But I get what he's saying because my friend Roland. He did about 15 years in federal prison, and he came home, and he had told me that he went to a Nebraska Furniture Mart for the first time and literally had to turn around, leave, and throw up because of all the sounds, the colors, the people. It's too much for your brain.
Yeah, see, that's what I was wondering. Like, he went to a Chiefs game? Holy shit.
I actually went to 2 Chiefs games, one preseason, and then...
That's a different animal than the regular season.
I said that. The preseason's nothing like
that's
regular
training
season.
Wheels. Because I remember even now... You'll go and you try to hug my dad. He's kind of And I remember my buddy Jamie Bluma, who we talked about it one time. He came
Jamie.
in, fucking grabbed him, a big bear hug, and I thought this motherfucker was gonna fucking crack him or something.
You didn't have your shank on, you didn't.
Get the fucking spoons off the table. But so that was for you. It was hard for you to be around big crowds and shit going on when you first got out, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why? Just weren't used to it?
Well, I think it was being in the service, plus that,
Because you saw some things when you were in Vietnam. We've talked about that on the podcast.
So you see both of them combined don't do me no good.
Right. And so you're more than happy not being in a big crowd still to this point.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so what? So let's go back to the 25 and a half years. Like, are you, and many people are ignorant of this, like, are you, how often can you watch games or watch the teams that you want or watch TV? Or, is there ever a chance for you to watch a movie or listen to the music? Or, like, how much can you keep tabs on what's going on out in the world and out in Kansas City and get a feel for anything?
So, prison is definitely living in a fishbowl, but unlike the federal prison system where they have TV rooms, in the state of Missouri, you can purchase a television through the commissary.
Okay.
So almost everybody has their own small television. Also, we had radios, and we have wound up getting tablets back in 2018. All no right. Internet, of course. Internet. No internet. That'd be a disaster. So yeah, you watch sports. We get the news. I got the Kansas City Star newspaper
and
almost
you watch
my
the
entire.
Chiefs and keep up with everything.
Absolutely, fantasy football is huge in prison.
Oh really?
Let me tell you something.
I would never think
fantasy football is like prison crack.
No kidding. Everybody. And
wow. It's serious too.
Right
it's saying a lot.
Right.
Yeah. You get leagues. You get teams.
What was your team name? Can I ask that? Did you have a team name? Did you have a...
Bada bing. Bada bing.
Okay. Now listen. Some people think I make shit up, right? my fantasy football team, and I only have one team. I don't do this shit when you're in more than one league and you got every fucking player. I have one team, one league that I'm in, right? And I'm in it, and it's my serious league. Hold on, here. I'll just show you that I got 2 rotisserie baseball teams, right? What's that say right there? What's the name of my team with my logo? The fucking Bada Bings with the
2.
right logo.
That's
I got the
logo.
Bada Bings 1. I got the Bada Bings 2.
1, Bada Bings 2. Yeah.
I got the logo on a baseball.
And I didn't even know that till right now. That's hilarious.
How we connect like this?
We're like fantasy football related, you and I.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So then how... So... we had to spend some time on this shit. So then you guys, how do you do the drafts?
So the only tricky part in prison is the stats, because you have to rely on the paper. And then, everything's went online. So the Kansas City Star used to print the box scores. And
that's how we used to do it back in the day. And so,
how you used to do it is how they still do it.
But how would you draft? How would you have the drafting of the teams?
So we take, you could take dominoes, you could take cards, you could take pieces of paper. We always try to get a 10-man league. Yeah. If you could get 12 players, if you could get 8 or 9, and a buy-in weekly, you have to pay to turn your lineup in, you have to pay to make trades, and you build a pot. And there's weekly winners, there's first, second, and third. 50% of the pot would go to first place, 30% second place, 20%.
Who was the commissioner of the fucking leagues?
I was.
You were the commissioner?
Yeah,
my boy.
They always talked me into being the commissioner because everybody in prison has bad habits, which I did not. So everybody's like, Mike, you hold the money. You be in charge of the numbers and the money. We trust you. And I said, that's fine.
That's I'm sure not everyone's wanting to play by the fucking rules and everything else, right? Did you have a lot to deal with on your hands?
Surprisingly, no. Because
a tight ship with this thing.
You have to run a tight ship, but every now and then somebody would try to pull a fast one. But here's the thing about prison: it's very structured to begin with.
Right.
There's more fucking rules than the airport. I swear to God.
Yeah.
Rules on top of rules. So we're so used to rules. We went into the fantasy football league with rules, and when a guy came to question you about something, you just pointed out to him, "Hey, you know the rules. That's not happening."
Do you have Mahomes in your fantasy football team?
Everybody wants to get Mahomes in the first round, and I love Patrick Mahomes. But let me tell you something. Every team since he's been the quarterback to draft him in the top 5 has not won.
Really?
In fantasy football, stick to what the pros say. You better get your running backs. You better get maybe a tight end.
Who's your guy? Who's the one guy that fucking paid off the most for you when you were running the Bada Bings in here?
And I'm not saying this because I'm here in the studio and I'm in Kansas City. Travis Kelce. Travis fucking Kelce. There's no other tight end that's going to get you he's like having a
87.
wide receiver and a running back combined into one. All the tight ends after Travis Kelce are hit or miss every week.
He's a sure thing, though.
He's a sure thing. You can come back and get a running back or a wide receiver or a quarterback. You need that Travis Kelce.
Did you win the league?
Oh, I probably won 3-4 seasons altogether.
So some of the people that say, "Wait a minute, you're the commissioner and you're winning this fucking league. I don't know about this."
No, there's
there's nothing.
Everybody's so in tune to what's going on, and everybody's so into the fantasy.
No way. Okay.
They're keeping track of the points the same way I was, the same way you would be, your father would be.
Yeah.
Everybody knows if you score 96 that week, it's 96.
And you got more time to invest in this thing because this shit's all going to be correct.
We had nothing but time. Nothing but time. Trust me.
So, is there anything else besides fantasy? What else? What was sounds like that was the big fucking thing as far as entertainment that you guys love was fantasy
any
football.
form of gambling in prison. People have tickets and bet on basketball and football, but just the typical things. People like to work out in prison. People like to walk, run.
Did you get a chance to watch movies at all?
Oh yeah.
Movies?
So in the state of Missouri, they have a movie channel, and they would loop. This sounds old, but they would put 5 DVDs in a carousel, and just one would play after the other. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there's a movie playing. You could go on the movie channel and watch it.
So if there was a good movie, but it was about prison, like Shawshank Redemption or something, you say, you know what, fuck this, I don't want to watch this. Or would you watch this? Or if Escape from Alcatraz, would you watch that? Or you don't want to watch this when you're in prison? How do you approach that?
There's guys that wouldn't watch certain things because it would make them miss home.
Right.
Funny story, prior to going to prison, I couldn't watch Shawshank Redemption because I knew I was going to prison.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, I couldn't watch a prison movie before I went to prison, but during prison, Shawshank Redemption is one of the best movies ever made. You get to pick and choose what you watch. Most guys in prison watch sports. Sports are medicine in prison. I don't care. It could be women's volleyball. It could be, softball.
Yeah.
It could be whatever.
You're watching it.
Sports are the biggest thing in prison.
What sport did you develop? Like, what did you start before? You didn't care about this fucking sport, but then when you're in prison, you became a fan of like what sport? Like, I love this, but you didn't fucking realize it until you got in prison.
Well, I always liked football, but until I went to prison and started playing fantasy football, I never realized how exciting the NFL could be. If you play fantasy football, it changes the dynamic in which you watch sports. I mean, instead of rooting for the Chiefs, which I did, and I'll continue to do, but I got players all over the league. Fantasy football has made football so enjoyable to me.
Last night, I'm staying up late and I watched that last second
ticker.
defensive touchdown by the Browns, and that was
there. You go.
Team. I'm like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I go to sleep. And so this got off the rails. That was very fucking interesting. Okay, so like how difficult is it? And I can be honest because I mean, maybe you don't want to talk about this, but like contraband or sneaking stuff in or sneaking stuff out of prison, is it? Because you watch some of the movies, or you watch some of the documentaries. Is it how difficult is that? Like if you recall, you had me go down to LaSalle's a time or two.
Shame on you.
And I had to walk in. I had to walk in 11 with a little bit of a limp because maybe there was a big sausage in my leg, and I got it in there. But that was a big deal, and I had no problem getting in there. Because
that's all we had was food.
Right, but I have it in there, and I'd say, if they get a fucking use this, God damn it, just line up and go through the fucking. I go,
It's like a scene from Goodfellas.
Exactly, and and he was slicing everything with a fucking razor blade. That was a big deal.
I mean, we wasn't into dope or booze, or we just wanted
that
something
sausage.
to eat.
That's exactly right. So were you able to? Then when did you able to get anything from the outside? Did you have a guy like me sneaking sausages in?
Can't they take food to you?
So in Missouri, we were allowed food visits. You
had so many things that you didn't fucking have.
Well, trust me, everybody thinks the federal prison system is the place to be. I don't know about that. Just to have a television in your own
I think
cell.
no place to be is better than
this is the place to be. Don't get me wrong.
Here we go. Hot mic with SSJ.
Yeah.
And so you were, but when you get out, you said you had a notebook or a pad or whatever, but then like you said you got this phone. That had to blow your fucking mind to have access to all this shit. Like I still
still blows my mind.
He's been out for fucking how long? 20 years, and he still can't figure out a fucking phone. But you, right? This is like some of the things what are some of the other things that we take for granted that you are still trying to wrap your head around now that it's been about a month and a half? That just like you can't fucking believe it.
I would just say, man, when you do 25 and a half and you come out and you have any friends left, because most people don't.
Right.
And I just got such a great group of people in my life. I just, forget the phones and the cars and the city and the growth, but just people. I just really enjoy people. I love my friends. I love my family. And I just like being with your father, driving out here. We were cutting it up and talking shit in the car. And
that's
what's important to me. Yeah, that's what I love the most.
But you, like my dad said, you have this perspective that many people wouldn't have. There would be people that in your situation that would come out and will be bitter and will be pissed off.
Yeah.
Right, and then have the attitude where they're not, and then maybe go right back in. But it appears that you have the attitude like, okay, I've been given this gift of freedom, and I'm going to enjoy every single part of it. And it is, I think, incredible that you have such a positive attitude. Part of that, you said, is your support system, but not everyone. This is rare, the way you're approaching this. And like you said, you're just thankful for friends and relationships. How did you develop that attitude and that optimism that you have right now?
So I got to give most of the credit there to my mother, Janine Albanese. I'm entering prison at the ripe age of 26, and I don't know, I'd been in prison maybe 3 or 4 years, coming up on the age of 30. And I remember when I was a teenager in high school, we used to sit around and say, whoa, I wonder where we'll be when we're 30. You know, everybody's like, well, I'll have a business, I'll be married with kids. And there I am sitting in Crossroads Correctional Center getting ready to turn 30. And I'm in a slump. You know, I'm at a down point in my life, and my appeals haven't gone through, and like, fuck, I got a life sentence to serve. This is so unfair, especially for the case, which we can get into later.
Right.
But my mother said to me, she said, Michael, the only control you really have over anything right now is your attitude. And this sounds cliche, but it's so true. You know, how your brain chooses to look at something, and the attitude that you have and your perspective. They can't take
that away from you.
They can't control that, and they can't take that away from you. And she said, if you do your time angry, upset, bitter, pissed off, you let them win. Don't let them win. It's
true.
that simple. And so I thought about that, and I'm like, you know, I feel like I have to win. Let me win. So I just took control of that and did my time, did it extremely well, did it the right way. And so I come out and I'm in a good place. You know, it probably sounds much simpler than what it was, because it's a lot of hard work, you know, not to sink into depression or go down the rabbit hole of staying high every day, all day.
Because you could do that in prison.
No, plenty of people do that,
People
and I
don't realize
understand
it.
It's a depressing environment.
Or numb yourself, some people.
Comfortably numb. Pink Floyd sung it best.
That's right.
That's right. And contraband is obviously prevalent in all jails and prisons. That's just a reality of incarceration. They're never going to change that. So, you know, you gotta, if your head wasn't screwed on straight prior to you going to prison, find a way to get it screwed on. If you choose to, if you want to get out and maybe be successful or live a good life, and put one foot in front of the other.
And see, that was something that always impressed me about my dad. Like, you became a baker. You got your preacher's license, right?
I did do that in case they tried to get me to testify against somebody.
So
you don't have to do it with a preacher's license. It's
see,
against
see?
to talk against your fellow man.
Right, exactly.
Is that why you keep asking me to marry you?
Right.
I do.
But you did. But you did a lot. And like, you were on the softball team, broke your wrist sliding to second base, which was bullshit. You know, that was a bad play. You didn't know that, did you?
I did not.
He broke.
I actually thought that scar was from something else.
No, he slid into second base, and that was.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
but you chose to do things that were constructive.
Yeah.
And
well, here's what
you went to school, and
many people this. I said, you know, I was at Springfield, Missouri, medical federal prison, and I thought, well, you know what, I can continue to have visits, because that was only like my second or third.
You're right up on the mic.
Second or third spot I was at, or second or third year, and I thought, you know, when I get out, people are going to ask me, what did you do? Well, I'm 5'6". I can dunk a basketball, maybe. I'm not a basketball player, and I knew that. So what I wanted to do was get something constructive. So I had them actually ship me to Yankton, South Dakota. That's the only time they ever did what I wanted, and because I put in for their bakery school. So that was about 6,000 hours of bakery, bake that I did, and so I learned how to bake. And then I got the 2-year degree at the Yankton College, or Mount Marty College. That was the name of it. They came over and taught us on the campus. And what else did I do?
Did you or did you not stop a riot with your cream puffs?
I did.
Did you know that?
I knew cream puffs, were very persuasive, but I didn't know they could stop a prison riot. I want to hear this story.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, they was having some rough times at a place called Waseca, Minnesota. It was an FCI. They sent me from a camp to an FCI because, well, I mean, they don't send you for nothing, but a FBI agent called up there and tried to talk to me, and I kind of told him what I thought.
Well, what did you tell him?
I just told him. He said, I'm Agent so-and-so, and we've got your doctor. He's getting ready to go to trial, and boy, if you could just come down and testify for us, and we could probably make, send you home 3 or 4 years early. And I said, hey, wait a minute. I got things I got to do. I got this bakery deal going. I got the college thing going. I said, I can't just up roots and go. you know. And he said, "Oh, really?" So he knew I was being sarcastic. Then he started being, and I says, "Where are you located?" He says, "Well, I'm the head agent in North Dakota." I said, "Wow, you really come a long way. Is it any colder they could send you any far north? So I guess you're not the favorite of the FBI." I said, "I'm going to have to let you go. I got things I got to do." Next morning, they shipped me at 3 o'clock in the morning and sent me to FCI Waseca, which is colder yet, from Yankton. The warden met me at the door. I said, what do you got me up here for? He said, "Well, we need a good baker."
Yeah.
Bullshit, you know, but they was opening this FCI and it's higher security. So as Mike well knows, a riot will start in the kitchen before it'll start anywhere, because that's where all the food's at, you know. They're not going to start a riot and get stuck that he can't get back to the kitchen. Oh, they'll get back to the kitchen, believe that. And we was having some people complaining about the movement, you know. You can only move on the hour, every hour, for just a few minutes, and then they knew the friction. And so anyway, I told the head guard in the kitchen, I said, "Listen, let's make these guys some cream puffs and kind of loosen the edge." "You can't make cream puffs. There's 500 people here." And I said, "Well, it's my horse. You just hold the head while I fuck it." So that's all you got to do.
What the fuck is that?
Well,
Where's that thing come
it's
from?
an
Looping,
Have you ever-
bestiality. What kind of
Have you
show
ever
is
heard
this?
This fucking no,
Yeah.
no.
No,
He just said, "Well, that's a well-known saying."
That's
Do you
it.
think have you heard that?
I'll be 50 on Sunday, and
Yeah.
I've not heard that one
don't-
before.
Well,
man
you
is
heard it
confused.
now.
Okay.
I heard it now.
So,
Thank you.
So anyway, I said, all we got to do, I'll make the pastries. The guys will cut them in half. Another guy will fill them full of ice cream, stick them in the goddamn freezer. It's not that confusing. So we did that. Then as they come across the line, I'd have them on trays, and I'd hit them with that chocolate sauce. That warden looked at that. He said, "My God, St. John," he said, "you're going to kill me with this waste. We'll be all right. Just hang in there."
So no riot.
No riot that day.
Surprising what a
Not
little
on
sugar will
King
do.
Buff Day. Huh?
Surprising what a little sugar will do.
Yeah, that's
You-
true.
It's my horse. You hold the head.
I said, "It's my horse. You
That's
hold
too
the head,
much.
and I'll fuck it."
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
In
well,
other words,
Put that
just
on a
hold the
t-shirt.
fucking,
Okay.
just hold
All
the
right.
head, and I'll take care of everything
All
else.
right. We've gotten out of hand here. So, Mike, you mentioned your case.
Yes.
And we can talk about this. So there is a book being written right now.
Correct.
So tell me about that.
So there's an author who lives in Colorado and who has ties to Kansas City, who learned about the case, had watched the court TV trial live there in Platte County, and then the follow-up documentary Crime Story. And he became interested in telling the story and learning more about it. His name is Frank Hade. And basically, you know, there's a lot of moving parts. I think he said one time there's 12 different criminal cases all in one big story that he's going to try to, you know, weave through and then lead into the fatal sting there at the Motel 6 in the Northland.
Okay, so this is totally up to you. I don't know how much you want to share about this or how much you want
Sure.
to talk about this. I watched the episode that was on Court TV, so I have some background. I talked to my dad a little bit about this. And so just you tell people what you want them to know. Obviously, this is going to be written about in the book. There is that episode that's on YouTube that you can watch. And so if just in your own words, you can tell me, you know, what happened, how you ended up doing 25 and a half years, and why you think it's important for this to be written about.
You know, I if I could sum it all up in one word, I would say entrapment. I would say that Joe Riley was entrapped through the use of a paid FBI informant, Joe Bartels, and it was very unfortunate what Joe Riley ended up doing, which was shooting Joe Bartels in the shoulder. But, you know, I would say that he was very desperate. His father and his stepmother were both sitting in jail on their way to prison for some white-collar crimes. And it just became this, it started out as a FBI reverse drug sting targeting some of the Riley family's hidden assets, and somehow turned into this cocaine conspiracy, which I'm still scratching my head over because Joe Riley was not a drug dealer in any way, shape, or form.
And you knew Joe Riley. He was a friend of yours.
Yeah, I was friends with Joe Riley.
And for people that don't know, you were at an Applebee's eating dinner, right? And
We had stopped at an Applebee's to get some food and then wound up at a Motel 6 for the second time that day. And there were three of us in the car, myself, Joe Riley, and a man named Nicklin Franca, who's no longer with us. Basically, so Joe Riley could, meet his so-called friend, Joe Bartels.
And he told you he was just there to bring some food to his friend.
Yeah,
right?
well, obviously, something's going on.
Right.
You're not completely stupid, but you don't ask a lot of questions. You just kind of, back in the 90s, back then, people just kind of moved through the streets. And I don't say this to boast or brag, but when you're involved in that lifestyle and out there in them streets, you don't ask a lot of questions. Your friend calls and says, "Hey, I need you with me. Come on, I got this deal." You go. That.
Oh, I grew up not asking a lot of questions.
Exactly.
I totally understand what you're talking
everything
about.
that Joe Riley had planned or going on, I couldn't tell you. It's just very unfortunate that he ended up losing his life that day, and I wound up serving 25 and a half years for an FBI agent shooting and killing him, because in the state of Missouri, it's called felony murder.
And you and Nick had stayed in the car. He had gone into the Motel 6
Correct.
to do whatever he was going to do. He walked in. His friend Bartels was waiting for him. He goes in, pulls a gun out of a bag, shoots Bartels in the shoulder. When that happens, the FBI agent runs in and then shoots Joe Riley and kills him.
Yeah, apparently there was an adjoining room right next door that was full of FBI agents as well as IRS agents, which has always been interesting to me. I didn't realize IRS agents, took an interest in cocaine conspiracy cases. But so, yeah, an FBI agent came through the adjoining door and shot Joe Riley.
And you're in the car and you don't know what's going on. So then what happens? You start to see...
Well, they placed us both under arrest, and then they took me to Platte County and charged me with felony murder. Nicklin Franca never got charged with felony murder. Nobody knows why, but... So, yeah, that's it. It was an interesting case. It was a unusual application of a very dated law. Felony murder originated from England, which... Ironically, England took it off their books. So the originators of a law deemed it too unfair, unjust, harsh, whatever, and removed it, while we still use it here in the United States and in the state of Missouri.
And so the confusing thing is, for people that may not understand, it's like a good guy, bad guy law. It would be more understandable if he had gone in there and shot an agent and the agent was killed, and then they tried to pin the murder on the accomplices that were with him, right?
Correct.
He was the one that was killed by an FBI agent, and so you were charged with the murder of your friend that went in there and was shot and killed by an FBI agent.
A member of law enforcement,
Right.
acting in the line of duty.
Right.
That's why Court TV covered the trial live in Platte County, because felony murder was designed for, say, you and I, or the three of us, even at your age, Mr. St. John, that we went to rob a bank and we're all hopped up on adrenaline or who knows what else, but the three of us go inside that bank and your dad here gets trigger happy and shoots and kills one of the tellers. Well, the three of us are in there committing this felony on this crime, and so you and I could be held responsible for that teller's death. I get that.
Right.
That makes sense to me. Like, my brain can wrap around that as far as felony murder.
But then in that case, using the same example, if my dad gets killed by the FBI agent, we get charged with his murder.
And that's where I get confused, because technically the bad guy was killed. So why the fuck should we get his death? To me, murder should be reserved for murder unless an innocent person is killed. It's just, like everything else, that something goes into the books and then they tweak it or they find a loophole and they like to test the waters. And I get it. I was a test case there in Platte County, and they were successful.
Do you have any idea how many other people were accused or were charged with that under that law in a similar situation?
So when you go up for parole in the state of Missouri, months before your actual hearing, they have what's called an IPO, an institutional parole officer. You'll have to go see that person to talk about your upcoming parole hearing. And I happened to get this woman who was a former police officer. And I go into her office, and I don't know her. I don't know her from Adam. I sit down in the chair, and the first thing she says to me, she says, "Mike," she said, "I've been looking at your case, And she says, I was a former cop. And I said, yeah. And she goes, I'm still scratching my head. I said, me too. And that's when I knew I'd get a fair shot from her. I mean, I've had law enforcement. I went to high school with police officers. I know people from all different walks of life, and nobody can seem to understand why I would serve life 25 and a half years in a maximum security prison when a member of law enforcement, again, acting in the line of duty, would shoot and kill the bad guy, the perpetrator of a crime. Maybe it should be, looked at. Maybe somebody somewhere should rethink it. But
okay, something I wanted to ask you after watching that episode, and again, if you don't want to answer this, it's totally up to you. But I did think it was interesting. It explains in the episode that you had a chance to testify.
Correct.
And you chose not to.
Correct.
When you look back, do you wish you would have testified? Can you explain to me why you didn't testify? Because they didn't really go in too much to that. Is that something you've thought about? Obviously, you've thought about all of it since then. But what was that a mistake, or do you still maintain that that's what you should have done? I'm just curious what the thought process was.
They say hindsight is 20/20 vision. Anybody that gets in criminal trouble would want to defend themselves or take the stand to, explain either what happened or say what didn't happen.
Right.
The problem with that is these juries are so fickle. They can look at you, they can look at me, they could look at anyone and just dislike them for no reason. So when you get up there on that stand, and any good litigator, any great or good trial lawyer will tell you, if you give them more than what they have by you sitting at that table, if you take that stand and say something they don't like, if they don't like the tone of your voice, your demeanor, your mannerisms, then they convict you. And so unfortunately, a lot of people don't take the stand on their own behalf. In my case, I had John P. O'Connor, which, you weren't going to find a better trial lawyer in the 1990s than John O'Connor. And I liked John. I trusted him and I respected him as a lawyer, as my lawyer. And when he said, Mike, if you were my own son, I would tell you not to get on that stand.
Okay.
I didn't take the stand. Do I look back and regret it? I look back and regret a lot of things, but I can't live my life like that. I made a decision at the time not to take the stand and testify on my own behalf, and that's what it was. In Platte County, there probably wasn't much I could do anyway. They have like a 99.9% conviction rate. Bad place to be. I get it. People are up there raising their families, trying to live quiet lives. I respect that. So I don't think even testifying would have helped me.
And the way they explained it is because they felt like the fact that the person that did testify against you, Nick, had been proven enough in that trial that he was lying and wasn't a trustworthy witness, and his testimony could be called into question. They felt that was enough. Focus on that. Focus on the whole thing is pinned on his testimony, and you can't trust his testimony. So leave it at that. And if they follow instructions and just pay attention to that, then you should win. And
that's exactly right.
That was it.
You sound like John O'Connor, word for word. That's exactly what he said. Yes.
But that's not what
and
happened.
That didn't end up happening, but yeah, that was O'Connor's reasoning and train of thought back then as a litigator.
And again, you talk about the way you've approached this, and you say, well, I could have a lot of regrets and have a lot of second guesses, and hindsight being 20/20, but you choose not to do that. And there's a lesson there for people, because if anyone has a chance or a reason to be bitter, to be angry, it's you. But you've chosen, and you talked about what your mom said, you've chosen not to do that. Do you think the book being written, how do you think that will affect you when it's out there and people read this? Do you think that will have closure for you? I mean, how? Because some people would just want to move on. Like, look, that's done. I'm fucking out. I want to live my life and not go through this again. But tell me a little bit about maybe how you feel about that as we get closer to this book being released.
So I'm sure you've heard people use the term live your life through the windshield, don't look in the rearview mirror.
Right.
And that's kind of the approach I'm taking. I'll be 50 on Sunday, and I feel like I got some good life left. I'm ready to get to the next chapter, turn the page, so to speak. And I am looking forward, 100%, yes. However, Frank Cade's unbiased narrative of this story it's not so much to glamorize or glorify, a certain lifestyle that no longer exists or crimes from the past, even though true crime books still remain popular today. It's, he and I have talked about, there's an underlying theme, and that's chasing ghosts. And that's what we were doing. To grow up in the 1990s as a young Sicilian kid, especially from the East Coast originally, we were all chasing ghosts. We were trying to get involved and be a part of something that we were completely ignorant of and stupid to want to get involved with. So I don't feel like the book is looking backwards. I think it'll be cathartic, and I would like people to maybe know more about this case and learn the facts, and not maybe, view Joe Riley as just a bad guy or some idiot that went into a Motel 6 and shot an informant in the shoulder.
And that's important to you.
That's very important to me.
That was your friend.
He was my friend. He's still my friend. Yes.
And so you want people to know the real story, and you think maybe he's been wrongly portrayed.
He was a good kid that did a bad thing. And again, he wasn't Joe Riley. He wasn't even like us, He just... He wasn't. He was well groomed. He was very respectful. He wasn't a criminal, but good people are capable of doing bad things. If the perfect storm comes along and pulls them in that direction, and not that I look back or harbor any resentment or have ill feelings towards them, but to this day I still feel like the FBI created a crime on top of a crime that didn't need to happen.
And I think, and that's why this resonates with me hearing you say that, because like I said, we're the same age. I'll be 50 in November, and we ran around with a lot of the same people.
We did.
In the same area at the same time. And that caused me to reflect on this and think about, because I met my wife in 96, and I was, there was a stretch there, 91, 92, 93, where I was hanging around with the wrong people for the wrong reasons. And you say that, and the reason I mentioned this, that resonates to me, you say chasing ghosts. I wasn't chasing a ghost. I was chasing him, because I grew up around him, and he had a reputation, but people respected him, but more importantly, people feared him. And you see that as a kid when you're 14, 15, 16, 17, and you don't think about all the downsides. You think, I want to be that. I want to be the guy walking in with the fucking $500 cowboy boots and the fucking town car with the tinted windows and the secret compartment with this, that, and everything else. Right? I mean, you were...
Sure, yeah.
It's hard, and growing up in Northeast, it's hard not to want to be that, right? But then I had two things that changed my life to work for me. Number one, my mom was always that angel on my side in the ear saying, don't fucking do this. Your cousins are doing this. Your fucking dads did, don't fucking do this. Don't fuck up. And then also, right when I'm 17, 18 years old, I see him go away, right? And then for the first year or two, I'm still thinking, well, I got to be Steve St. John Jr. I got to fucking live up to this. I got to be that guy. I still live in Northeast. But then going to visit him. And it would, and I've told you this before, it would fucking kill me when I'd go and visit him
and have to leave.
And I'd be so excited to see him, and I'd be fired up, and we'd sit there and talk, and then I'd have to leave, and I couldn't fucking, I would have given anything to walk him out of there and put him in my car. And I couldn't, I'd cry all the way. I don't give a fuck if people know. I'd cry all the way home, because I couldn't bring him with me.
Right.
And who knows what I would have done. I had cousins, that I hung out with,
sure.
Went this way and that way. If I hadn't have been, I guess the best was scared straight like that, and to see that environment, and I was chasing him, and I wanted to be like him until I saw the other side of it, and then he would tell me, because there was one time that something happened, we don't need to get into it, and then my mom was all fucking pissed off, said, you're going to go talk to your dad, see what he has to say about this. I got into a fight in a parking lot, and some other shit had happened, and he got there, and he was hot, he was pissed. Right, because I'm supposed to be going to school and doing the right thing, and I kind of wasn't doing the right thing. And we sit down. There was a Leavenworth. It was outside. Remember that gazebo or whatever? I'll never forget this. And we're sitting there, and he's looking at me. He goes, "You want to fucking be here? You want to fucking act like this? You want to act like your friends and be? It's all fucking cool." He goes, "You want to be here with me? You want to stay here, or do you want to be able to get in the car and fucking leave and go home?" And that was such a, and maybe you don't remember that, but I'll never forget that, because my mom, you better fucking talk to him, and that's how you can end up. And I left there, And that was one of the biggest life-changing moments I've ever had. So everything you just said resonated with me.
So the title that Frank Hayde and I have kind of discussed and come up with, Chasing Ghosts, is exactly that. It's guys of our era, guys of our age, growing up in certain neighborhoods around certain people, uncles, fathers, grandfathers.
Best friends.
Friends. You know, it's like shiny objects. We move towards them, and you don't realize the pitfalls that are waiting for you. Some people were lucky and didn't wind up in prison, but Chasing Ghosts was just that, trying to be like your father or living up to that name. One of the best things that somebody told me not too long ago was that I single-handedly got them out of the streets, because I think guys my age, when they saw me get arrested and stand trial there in Platte County, then I had to go fight in federal court and lost. It opened their eyes up. It woke them up to, hey, I'm not ready to do life. I'm not looking to do 30 years. And shit's serious, you know?
Yeah.
They say if you can't do the crime, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. Yeah. That's easy to say, but, you're hard to do. And when you're young, you feel invincible, or you go down that rabbit hole of street violence or criminal activity. You don't realize when you get caught, which chances are they are going to catch you, because they got more tools and toys than you could possibly imagine. Yeah. Not just, surveillance teams. They got airplanes and listening devices. And when you get caught, you're going to be faced with the hard decision.
I want to say a couple of things. Mike, when he was out and about, he's moving, smooth operator. And when I tell you a couple of things here, you go, that's where he got that from. Okay. But he was a smooth operator, nice-looking kid. Everybody wanted to be like him. Not me, because I was older than him.
He won't admit it, at least on air.
I'm just going to say this. You didn't have the fucking hair to be like him, but that's all right.
Let's just get that out. Let's just get that out there.
Yeah. I got that from you.
Jesus
don't get to be looking that way.
Anyway,
I guess he won't be buying me lunch. That's
so
all right.
what I was saying is he lived up above Joe Cucci.
Oh boy, there you go. There it is.
There you go, right there.
Right.
Joe taught him a few tricks.
Sure.
But the fact of the matter is like he said, that this, you'll just have to read the book and watch the tape, because unless you know the whole story, and you will after this, is Joe Riley. His dad, I never knew his dad, but his dad was somewhat of an insurance fraud guy, like Bobby Farrar was. You remember my friend Bobby?
I do. And Emily Water, yes. I worked for Bobby momentarily, so yes, I remember.
And so out there where he lived was out on Ward Parkway, and that house was, several $1 million?
Yeah, it was. I don't even know if I'd call it a house.
Yeah, a mansion. It was a mansion. So anyway, they were on his ass, and they was chasing the what did you say? The assets. That's right. What they wanted.
Hidden assets.
So they've been after the dad for a long time.
And they try to get to the dad through the son.
Yeah.
There you go.
Now, moving on, in '99, I went to Colorado, the last place I was at. And I was sitting in the kitchen because I was baking there, baking everywhere. And I see a little old guy over there filling salt and pepper shakers. And he had 045 on his uniform. Well, 045 is Kansas City. It's Western District. I know that much. And I said, hey, how you doing? Are you from Kansas City? He said, yeah. And come over. He said, I'm so-and-so Riley. I said, yeah, how you doing? I said, I've heard of you. Yeah, and he started telling me, he said, FBI just killed my son, and they was really after me, and he just started crying. I felt bad for the guy. And so he told me that part about it. There, he said, yeah, he said, they really wanted me, but he said they kept on my son and doing this and doing that, and finally they got him something hooked up that he took the bait.
I mean, we'd always talk about that too. Remember, we had there was a time when they wanted to talk to me, and I had to talk to some agents at the Denny's on Broadway, but you were there with me, and trying to get to you through me to see if I would say anything, and follow me sometimes, and obviously not as much as they could have, or been harassed as much as they harassed other people. But I remember that, They tried to see if there was a way through me, and you always told me about that, And
Yeah.
I would get mad at him sometimes because he wouldn't include me in stuff, or he'd be going on a trip and I wanted him to go. He goes, no, you can't go with me on this trip. I go, I'd be fucking mad. Like, why the fuck can I go with you?
He was protecting
I know you're
you.
taking other people,
Yeah.
but then later on he would tell me, a lot of those times when I didn't want you around, or I didn't take you on that trip, or I was with other people, it wasn't that I didn't love you, or I didn't want you to be around. I was protecting you. But you don't see that when it's happening.
Right.
You sit
You
on
feel
my-
left
Right
out.
there in
Yeah.
front of you. Yeah.
You feel left
You
out.
feel left out.
Exactly right. And so
He knew things you didn't know yet.
Right, exactly right. And so it's funny how your dad gets smarter as you get older. And I'm hoping my kids my kids don't fucking listen to me now. See, in 20 years I'll make sense. And so what I'd like to wrap this up and tell people again the name of the book and the author and when we can expect to be able to read this.
Well, the title of the book is going to be Chasing Ghosts, written by Frank Hayde, Hayde. I encourage everyone to read his other books. He's a wonderful author. He's a good person. He really has a great sense of the story. And you can also watch the Court TV crime story on YouTube, I believe.
And just put your name up in Michael.
Yeah, you just Google Michael G Albanese, Fatal Sting. It's an interesting case. It was a unique twist on old law, and maybe some people don't give two shits about people in prison.
But
Maybe some people do.
But they portrayed it accurately. You thought it was a good portrayal of what happened. That piece.
Yeah, I thought it was decent.
And And then when's the book coming out?
Sometime next year.
Okay, and then we'll be able. We're going to talk to you between now and then.
Absolutely, sometime next year.
The book. And again, I'll just say this: like I always tell my dad how proud I am of him. After he got out, he never got in trouble again. The way he conducted himself and the way he utilized his time there. To make cream puffs and do other things, but also just the man that he's become after that, because that's not easy. And I see that with you for 25 and a half years. I have a tremendous amount of admiration for your attitude and for your optimism, because you got, we all go through shit every day and we think, oh, life sucks, or how am I going to get over this? Man, if you can get over that and come out the way you have, then that's an inspiration to a lot of people.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that you've, connected with this guy, because I don't know.
My man.
And I don't know how much is going to help you get around Kansas City, since you can't find a fucking.
Oh, I have to navigate.
Yeah.
We know that.
Hey, you're going to have to be the wingman. You have to show him around Kansas City.
I want to
for some
say one
reason.
thing, because anytime I get out here, I got
Please do. You got something to
look out
promote.
for myself. Listen to Gangland Wire crime stories.
Yeah.
With Gary Jenkins. I've got a lot of my podcasts are on there, and they're pretty interesting. They're all true. Sometimes click on there and see what it's all about.
How about this fucking podcast? Can you promote this one?
I'm not done
Hot
yet.
Mike with SSJ.
What the fuck?
I'm not done
Okay, go
yet.
ahead. Go.
And also, Hot Mike with SSJ, and you can say anything you want.
Yeah, you can.
You can fuck this, fuck that.
Is
It
there
doesn't
anything
make
you
any
want to
difference.
say in closing to get off your chest about anything in general?
No, I'm
you
just
pretty much
glad
did?
that you give us the opportunity to come out
Anytime.
and tell Mike's story, because he's a heck of a guy. He's what a nice guy. And it just think, wow, it's a waste of time. So it was a waste of time. But I guess
Coming out here, it was a waste of time.
it's putting him in jail.
Hey, clarify. No, and I always say, you know what? And I always have to call my dad about, like, I'll meet someone. So, yeah, I knew your dad, or I always go, hey, Dad, is this guy okay?
Yeah.
And he'll say, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
Or I'll go somewhere. And so whenever he gives the seal of approval, that means more to me than anything. And I've been around you. He came out to watch the Canelo fight. He kicked Triple G's
Yeah.
ass.
I was there.
I know he's the right kind of
Yeah,
guy.
I was there.
So man, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Anytime you want to come out here, and if you feel like, you know what, I should have said this or should have said that. Is there anything else you want to say in closing, or thank anyone, or say something about this guy and his directions or whatever?
Your dad's great, man. He's been very supportive, and I love sitting and talking with him. We go grab bites to eat, and we have a good connection. And just thank you for having me out here, and I plan on coming back. And
you enjoy Sports Radio 810. You listen
I
to the
love
show before?
it. Yeah, that was you got the great show.
You
Great
met Tim
show.
Grunhard today.
Met
He
Tim
was all fucking
Grunhard. He
pissed
was
off
great. He's
today.
going to get me a book.
Yeah,
Can't wait to read his book.
Yeah,
hold him to that.
Yeah, I do a show with him, and I ain't got a book, so don't hold your
We'll
breath
probably
on that
have
one.
books before you.
That's probably a good possibility. All right, so Mike and my dad, thank you so much for coming out here, and thank you so much for watching and listening to Hot Mike with SSJ. Until next week, the microphone is off.